Okay, I just want to start by saying thank you so much for taking the time out to sit down and chat with me.
Well, thank you for having me.
No problem. So we should start right at the beginning. How did your love of theatre begin?
My love of theater began, I would have to say, I talk about it in my show too,
Mhm.
where the first show I ever did was Aladdin Jr. and I was the
Mhm.
genie of all things.
Oh wow.
And so that was a lot of fun. And it was funny too, because it's like I would always watch like the shows that my school did before, and I was like, oh, that'd be cool. And then I
Hmm.
had like some parents and even adults be like, you should do that. And so I tried it out and they were very impressed, and
Just
one
work
could say I peaked then, but no, I didn't peak then.
there.
And that's kind of where it all
Hmm.
started. The acting bug got me.
So how did you go from sort of being in plays then to sort of writing and creating your own stuff?
So how that came about, I think it was just like a natural
Hmm.
evolution of things. And it's one of those, you don't see like the big picture of your life until you connect the dots, where I've always been good at writing,
Hmm.
and I just didn't think of it as like it's one of those things where you have like a natural skill at something, and because you don't feel like you have to work at it, it's like, oh, this isn't that special or
Hmm.
unique, or because I just like doing it. And I think what ended up happening was like I was getting to a point where, when you're just the actor, sometimes you're at the mercy of whatever the production is,
Hmm.
for better or for worse. And I've had worked on great ones, and then there are other times where I'm like, this idea would be better, and
Hmm.
maybe I have a little bit of controlled tendencies. And so it was a great way to use my imagination and then just create what I wanted. And
Hmm.
already it's hard enough like trying to find bookings or gigs in this industry, and there's no reason to just make your own, especially with technology being so accessible. And also just why not? Just
Yeah.
do it.
Just have a go.
Yeah.
Fabulous. So is this the first play you've written? We'll get on to the actual show. Is this the first one you've done?
So, well, this isn't my first play
Hmm.
original work that I've produced. So my first one was Reunion, which was a
Hmm.
dark comedy about a high school reunion after a school shooting. So really fun. It won the social good award in the
Oh.
Tampa Fringe Festival, and then it was also a part of the Tampa Theater Festival.
Mhm.
Oh, so I should also say, like, I am not British. I am from the United States, unfortunately, right now. Um, Not proud of it. Just gonna throw that out there before anyone makes any assumptions. And so that play was actually inspired. Well, I don't like to say inspired by that,
Mhm.
but influenced by the Parkland shootings, which was actually where I went to high school. So I graduated 5 years after that. So it
Mhm.
was like right in my backyard, in Florida. And that was just a great like
Mhm.
catharsis for me, like just how to process it on my end, like how it, I guess, indirectly affected me, but also directly because it was literally like 5 minutes
Yeah.
from where
Wow.
where I grew up. And also just how the media was taking it, and people, because I remember even when I visited my parents and they had like flowers at the
Mhm.
school, um, people were taking pictures like a tourist attraction, and that
Mhm.
disgusted me,
Yeah.
and so that kind of spiraled into, oh, like the microcosm, but then how is
Yeah.
they're reacting to like the national, international maybe news of it. So that was my first play that
Mhm.
I wrote, produced, directed, and acted it. I will
Wow.
Don't act and direct your own stuff at the same time. It is easier for film because you can at least look back at the footage, but then when you're
Hmm.
on stage, you're like, how does this even look? I don't even know how I did it when I did, but we did it. And then this project, this is my second work that I produced and wrote and starring in, but I have my dear friend Mackenzie Aaron who directed me, and she was a great help on it as well. Um, a great part of it. And so I have the joke in my show that, this project's taken me about 6 years, and, why it took me so long. Like, oh, I could blame the pandemic, but honestly, I'm terrible to work with. A one woman show. So, so that's a different type of
Mm.
dynamic. Also a lot easier to travel with. So
Mm.
hence why I'm taking it to Edinburgh.
Fabulous. So where does the name is quite interesting.
Thank you.
Inspiration porn. So where did that
Yes.
come from?
So inspirational porn is a concept coined by late activist and comedian Stella Young, and she has a whole TED talk about it, and it's essentially the stories you see in media involving, excuse me, disabled people told through a more heartwarming, feel good lens.
Mhm.
Like, oh, look at this, like boy with Down syndrome like winning this race, or
Yeah.
oh look, and it's always football players for some reason. Oh, look at this football player like taking this girl out to prom like with autism. Wow. Like just one of those like, oh my God, look, but makes other people, neurotypical people feel better, but not necessarily, or non-disabled people feel better. But it's like passive
Mm.
inspiration, because they're getting off on like, wow, look, that's so nice, but they're not really going out of their way to help
Yeah.
somebody. It's like
Mm.
inspirational bypass, maybe. That's a new phrase I came up with. I don't know. Um, and so I heard that on a podcast called Spectrumly Speaking, which is about like two women on the spectrum or autistic women talking about their experiences. And when I heard that for the first time, I was like, oh, that makes so much sense now. Because
Mm.
throughout my whole life, I was diagnosed with autism at 2 years old, like moderate to severe. And I have another joke in my show where, doctors didn't think I'd ever talk, let alone write, produce, and star in our
Mm.
own one-woman show at Edinburgh Fringe. So
Mm.
I always had this uh what is this like, not reputation per se, but persona, or
Mhm.
even just like, I guess, reputation maybe, or being seen as like, wow, you're such a miracle for graduating college, or doing the fact that you're able to
Mm.
do any of these things when we didn't even think you could
Yeah.
ever. And that's also just a product of the time too. Like it was very, very exceptionally rare for me to have a diagnosis in the 90s, especially as a woman, especially half Latina as well. Like I'm a statistical anomaly among many reasons why, but um there's that. And so adults would see me, especially as a kid, like, oh, this precocious, like, oh, so mature, so
Mm.
wow, look at her doing all these things. But then socially with my peers, I've always felt like I was bullied a lot, or people just didn't care for me, or there was something off about me. Like they
Mm.
just didn't want to, and it was hard for me to like get along with my peers. So I was like that kid at the party that like, oh, kids are screaming and running around. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go sit with the adults
Mhm.
because I can't keep up with the
All
shenanigans.
that.
I was like, I am ready to go home. Like we just,
Mm.
yeah. So I was that kid. And, then I would be reading like animal books instead of playing with people in
Mm.
recess, like, so quirky. Um, so things like that. And so, hence bringing it back to inspirational
Mm.
porn, and why I call myself an inspirational porn star is, when I tell people about my autism and all those things, like I've had teachers, and even, I studied film
Mhm.
at the University of Tampa. And so I would have these ideas about, oh, this thing. And they're like, oh, well, why not make it about you and your story and all this? And I'm like,
Mm.
well, initially I didn't want to be out as
Mm.
autistic because the artist struggle of like, oh, I don't want to be defined by this one thing when I'm so many
Mhm.
more things. And so that was the box I was afraid of being
Mm.
put in. And, I was like, oh, I don't want to be known as this thing, which yes, could help me like get accommodations, but I also don't want that to define me
Yeah.
necessarily.
I see.
Um, and because they were pushing me down that inspirational porn pipeline.
Mhm.
And so now that I knew what that was, I'm like, oh, that makes so much sense. And so then I thought it would be funny to call myself an inspirational porn star, where I I am the star of this inspirational porn, and
Mm.
I can control the narrative. Um, and it works on like so many levels, not just, and this was before OnlyFans was a thing
Mhm.
either. So it adds to that level. And then even just as a woman just displaying herself, or
Mm.
risking any being perceived, that's, it plays with like how much is being exploited versus not. So that's kind
Yeah.
of where it came
Yeah.
from. Yeah.
Where did the actual sort of the play of it come about? Where did the bringing it to the stage enter the sort of journey?
Yeah, so I worked on it. So yeah, this was like in my Google Drive for years. Like
Hmm.
it was initially going to be part of the Tampa Fringe Festival back in 2020. But you can imagine what happened in 2020. It also kind of like the Vancouver Fringe too, which was great, but of course I couldn't go
Yeah.
to that, unfortunately. Maybe one day. Um, and so it was a lot of like stop and starting, and then something about this past year, like late 2024, Tampa Fringe, they had this event or program called the Winge, which was essentially like a workshop festival. And I was like, I need to get this done because this is like the albatross on my neck. Like
Hmm.
I hate not getting things done. And with Reunion, that I applied like literally just the title of it and then got picked out of a lottery and was like, oh, I actually have to produce
So
this
do
now.
it. Yeah.
And I somehow produced a whole show in 6 months with a cast
Wow.
of 11 twice. Don't ask me how I was able to pull it off. I'm just that. I don't, it's still crazy how much time I had then. And so with this show, it's like, you know what? I didn't like the whole feeling like stop and starting or feeling like, oh, I'm working on this thing, but it's not done. So for Winge, it was like a staged reading of the first, well, the play is like about 30 pages, but the first like half, or like I guess you could say the first act of my show. Um, and then once I got to that, then it was like, okay, now because I need strict deadlines. It's probably
Hmm.
also because of the autism and then like ADHD I have,
Yeah.
where if I don't have a strict deadline on things, they're like, oh yeah, get it done like whenever. It's not gonna get
Yeah.
done. I need the pressure of like, oh,
Hmm.
people are gonna see this and you need to get it. And I'm like, okay, work. Like let's
Let's do it.
yeah, I just need the concrete, like, oh, when do I need to get my ish together? Perfect. All right. And so I need that pressure, which terrifies my mother, but it's how I roll. Um, so once I got into at least just doing the workshop, I was like, okay, now I'm building that momentum. Then I applied again and then got in. So, and
Hmm.
then there were times where I didn't get picked in the lottery too for Tampa
Hmm.
Fringe. And I just feel like that's very divine timing because when I did get it produced, it was an interesting time for an openly autistic person to do a whole show about their sex life and adult things. So I was like, you know what, this worked out really well for me. And also, where I am now in my life, I don't think I would have been able to do it
Mm.
if I was younger. And that's just from maturity and experience. And actually, Mitch, who is my stage manager, production person, left brain, was telling Megan, who was one of the techs that we had at Tampa Fringe, like they were basically explaining the whole lore to them because they've been my best friend for 10 years, so they've seen it all happen.
Ah.
And they were, what did they say? They were like, yeah, half of the things that happened in this play didn't even happen when they first started writing. So it's
Hmm.
just gotta let things, everything happens for a reason.
I also, just a random note, I love the Whinge. I think that's a
Oh, thank
fantastic
you.
name.
Oh yeah, no,
That's
that's an
brilliant.
awesome. Yeah, because it's like
Workshop
you're
Fringe.
winging it and it's fringe. It's a really cool thing that they started, especially for like works in
Hmm.
progress.
So was the plan always for it to be kind of a one-woman show, or did that change over time, or was from the beginning you wanted to be the sole star?
Yeah, so it was definitely always a one woman show
Hmm.
in my mind because it's a story, it's my life story.
Hmm.
And the joke of it too, not just being the inspirational porn star, but I also tell my life story like I'm a washed up child actress. Like very much like I have the whole old Hollywood get up, so like Judy Garland mixed with like
Uh,
Lindsay Lohan, like
hmm.
totally messed up at parts. And because I'm talking about my own personal stories, it was always kind of just me.
Hmm.
And even like after a reunion, you know, I've had people like come up to me and they're like, you should do like a one person thing
Hmm.
because you're a good writer, like you can do it.
Yeah.
And it took a lot of, I guess, like courage to like get into that like mindset, but I did imagine it always as a one woman. There is like an idea that I have too. So I also work with a theater company called Theater Exceptional, which is a nonprofit organization that works with adults with disabilities. So we not only do we put on fun summer musicals, but I also teach there, like their
Yeah.
playwriting and sketch comedy classes. And so it'd be really fun to with especially with the neurodivergent women in that company to like maybe split my play a little bit so it's like they
Yeah.
represent aspects of my life maybe, you
Hmm.
know, or so that's like a fun little thing that I can experiment with for
Hmm.
sure. But
Oops.
no, it's all about me for the most.
So you talked about how the show has sort of grown and developed. So what
Mhm.
has that sort of building process been like? The adapting of parts, changing things. What was that like for you?
I have to say it was this whole process has been very cathartic for me because like yes, I'm talking about my life from like a macro level to me personally. And essentially what ended up happening, I guess, turned into, me just making funny jokes about my life.
Hmm.
And now it's become this whole like political manifesto shadow work
Hmm.
thing because there were points where I realized patterns in myself that I didn't realize how internalized they were, like especially with like my love life, for instance. Like there was a point where I was writing about like my first real love in the
Hmm.
show. And then there was some bloke I was seeing, and I had this epiphany of like, oh wow, this is pretty much the same guy, just a different font. And then you're like, oh no, I have to,
Just
what do I do with this information? And realizing how, I guess, internalized these messages
hmm.
are, not just in a, oh, what's the word? It runs deep because they
Hmm.
talk about like what inspirational porn is, that's as the formula, like, oh, look at these people going out of their way to feel good about themselves because look, they did this nice thing for this disabled person. Then it turned to me realizing, oh God, I really accept the bare minimum from people
Hmm.
because who else would go so out of their way for me because
Yeah.
of the weirdness or issues or being a lot or too much, whatever you
Yeah.
want to call it. And once I had that relevate, can't even say the word, epiphany, so to speak,
Hmm.
revelation, there we go. Um, Everything just kind of clicked and it really developed from places of shame into now, especially after like Tampa Fringe, I actually did it. It was my
Hmm.
first time doing it in front of people and getting people's feedback from it. And then now where I'm at emotionally, spiritually,
Hmm.
it's turned into this like, oh, I'm not going down without a fight. Like
Hmm.
because especially the whole point of like inspirational porn is to make people feel better and make sure everyone else is good. And even as a woman, that's a lot of our
Hmm.
place in life is when dad's like, oh no, you have to keep the peace. No, you need to make sure everyone's okay. But my show kind of ends up giving, I don't want to spoil too much, but it kind of gives a middle finger to that.
Yeah.
Because they say in the beginning, like, hey, this isn't a fluff piece.
Hmm.
And and it takes, I think what I'm doing is pretty radical in the sense of, most shows want to have a happy ending, and this one is not as clear cut as people would like it to be. And I think that's just super cool.
Oh, fabulous. So obviously you mentioned earlier that you are heading to the Edinburgh Fringe. Obviously, massive congrats for that.
Thank you.
What was it like to get the call that your play was heading to the Fringe Festival?
That whole experience is why. So I tell people this story, and everyone's like, "You're joking, right?" Because so this basically what ended up happening was Tampa Fringe. They use Eventotron
Hmm.
to like submit, and I was getting like ads for different festival things, and I
Hmm.
kept seeing Just a Tonic a bunch of times. And I'll be honest, I didn't do too much research about it, but it's just like I kept seeing their ads over and over again. And then at my day job is a massage therapist, so I have a side
Hmm.
gig doing chair massage at a casino. Very glamorous,
Okay.
really. Um, and in their break room, they had The Simpsons playing, and it literally was like an episode where they were in Edinburgh Fringe. Like,
Oh, yeah.
and so I'm like, is that a sign? Like, I was like, is that a sign? Like, what are the odds that I see this and I'm seeing, because I'm a
Mm.
little blue like that. And so then I was finally like looking at the application. I was with Mackenzie, who not only is my director, but my roommate. And I'm looking at the application. I'm like, oh, I don't have to pay money for that. That's cool.
Oh.
And I didn't have the script finished yet. I had a press release.
Hmm.
So I submitted that. That was all I had. And this was before I even like produced it in Tampa. This was all like,
Hmm.
oh, it's gonna be in Tampa. Like pretty cool that this is happening in Tampa. And so I filled out whatever the stuff and then submitted it, and then I just forgot about it for like a
Hmm.
few weeks. And then I got the email about it that they said they accepted me, and I was like, Like I was
Yeah.
like freaking out. I was like, "Oh my God, we're actually doing it." And I'm also just so thankful for my family supporting
Mhm.
me because I would not be able to go without them because it's expensive.
Yes, yeah.
Um, so I'm very grateful for that, and I acknowledge like my privilege in
Mhm.
that as well. So I'm just incredibly lucky, incredibly grateful, and it definitely feels a little 0 to 60
Hmm.
miles for me, kilometers for you, like I'm sure. Um, about yeah, because it's like, oh yeah, this is my first like one woman show, technically first time touring, first time in Europe, first
Wow.
everything. Like, so it's a big deal, and
Mm.
I'm very grateful, and yeah, it's still kind of like I was in a good amount of shock for like the first like few weeks or
Hmm.
so, and felt like this whole like paradigm shift, like not saying like, oh wow, I'm so much better than these people, but I'm like, this is not my reality anymore. It was a very trippy
Mm.
like feeling, but validating. And
Mm.
so, and I even joked with my friend Mitch too, where it's like, oh yeah, we have this big opportunity, like, but I feel like we're both like more grounded now instead of the opposite. Like
Mm.
it feels right. Like we deserve
Yeah.
this. We're aligned, so it's
Mm.
all good stuff.
So how is getting ready for the Fringe different to like a normal play? How has your sort of getting ready process been different to then just putting it on?
So at least at this point, I did tighten up my script a little bit, like based on some feedback and a fringe review that I got. Noah gave me a really great
Mm.
review. So basically I had a really great fringe review
Hmm.
from Noah Pintana, who had his pup play at the Tampa Fringe. Really incredible performer and great writer too. And like so thinking about like his feedback and then also audience feedback was really great too. So taking like now not just like what was in my head and practice in my living room, but seeing how it's going to adjust to
Mm.
not just like people. So I'm like, okay, the Tampa, that's my like adult hometown, like not my child hometown, but like I spent
Yeah.
10 years here. So this is like my home front. And then I have a coworker, Madeline, who actually, funny enough, she used to be a part of the Edinburgh Fringe and like it's from the UK. So it was really great to get feedback from her, like especially
Mm.
marketing wise, because I noticed that at least so far from like the press that I've been able to get and
Mm.
who want to interview me, like they actually take my show seriously.
Hmm.
Whereas with Tampa, I was really leaning on the title doing the heavy lifting in the sense of like the title alone will shock people, let
Hmm.
alone freaking Tampa. Like and then I'm sure and not to mention like Tampa Fringe is the one specifically where our governor Ron DeSantis like was like, "Ooh, this is a
Hmm.
sex festival. We're gonna pull all the funding for art." So
Yeah.
very different than how you guys handle it. And so it's nice to have, and I even had like an article from Broadway World, like actually take the time to explain what an inspirational porn is.
Mm.
Whereas US media was like, especially like the local Tampa things, like not that people weren't like really talking about me, but they were like, oh my God, like porn,
Yeah.
inspirational porn, what? And then one local newspaper, they shared the article on Facebook, and then it turned into all these like men. Well, what was funny is I didn't have any tech pictures yet because I
Mm.
didn't produce the show. And what ended up happening was that they went on my Instagram, and of all the pictures they took was like a thirst bikini picture
Hmm.
I posted the one time I did that. And then all of a sudden they posted on Facebook, and then I get all these like misogynistic comments, and I'm
Mhm.
like, well, this is fine. But so far, the UK publications have been very nice to me. And like the fact that they're taking the time to explain inspirational porn is
Mhm.
fascinating. And it's just like, wow, they're actually, and even Madeline said, like, no, your show is very deep, like complex, like it
Mhm.
deserves to,
I
don't
did see it.
rely on the shock factor of
Mm.
it. Like you don't need that here.
Mm.
And that's like a very nice thing. I was like, oh, people taking art seriously? Like I don't have to
That's
sell myself. I mean, although to be fair, I didn't even sell myself out for Tampa really, because I didn't like show my body or my face. This
mm.
time I'm like, oh, I have tech pictures that actually and
Mm.
a update poster, all that good stuff. So adjusting things for the UK audience. The other feedback she gave me was also because I'm an American,
Mhm.
I adjusted my beginning to be like, hey, I'm not automatically a Trump supporter.
Yeah.
Just get that out of the way before you throw tomatoes at me.
Hmm.
So I have a little bit there that I'm
Mm.
workshopping and I think is pretty funny, but I'm trying not to, but for the most part, it's like so adjusting to those like cultural
Hmm.
things,
Differences.
but I
Mhm.
also feel like I'm not gonna really know until
You get there.
I show up. But I feel what's been working for me, and I think this is universal across all things, is
Hmm.
I just have to show up as my authentic self and
Hmm.
see what works and what doesn't. But I've never performed in front of internationally or outside of my
Wow.
little town of well, little state of Florida. So it's just very, very
Yeah.
exciting. Um, but yeah, so it was like kind of mentally preparing myself for that. Also
Hmm.
figuring out like how am I gonna get furniture because I
Hmm.
my set is small, but it's like oh I have like this small table and the chairs. Oh, how am I gonna figure that out? So that's we're
Yeah.
working on that. I'm figuring out those things. And worst case scenario, we'll just buy them there. I we somehow managed to make it work. So yeah, it's very much one of those like I'm trying to take it day by day because if I think about things too much, I
Mm.
will lose my
Yeah,
mind.
totally.
Um, but no, it's definitely
Mm.
trying to balance it all for sure.
Yeah, because obviously you've got like a massive journey from America to the Edinburgh Fringe. So obviously that stress of putting the show together there, do you think it's
Mhm.
amplified because of the distance you have to travel to get there?
I mean, like it's definitely a little
Hmm.
like because it's just a lot of firsts.
Hmm.
I mean, but I'm taking it as a fun challenge.
Yeah.
It's definitely out of my comfort zone, but in this industry, if you're gonna make it, you got to go big or go
Yeah,
home.
totally.
And I'm just gonna soak it all in and make it work, and then I will crash and burn when I'm done. Uh, but I feel excited, and I feel like I can rise up to the challenge, and it's just a really exciting opportunity. So, I mean, even if I am like terrified and want to throw up, like I know I'll be fine. So that's how I'm taking it.
So we are coming to the end of my questions.
Of course.
I do have a few more though. So where can
No,
people stay
no
up to
rush.
date? Thank you. Where can people stay up to date with you and the show?
So right now I'm most active, I'd say, on like my Instagram. It's Gabby, Gabby, Cab, CAB13. And then we also have a little company we're trying to form too called Feeling Inspired Productions. That's where like that's the more I guess like business page, whereas the Gabby Cab one is the more Gabby Cab 13, excuse me, is the more personal one. But I'll definitely be posting on there. Uh we actually funny enough, I'm probably gonna do like a video series about microdosing bread because I'm gluten intolerant here. And so everyone's like, oh, you could eat gluten in Europe. And I'm like, can I? So, but I can't not. So I'm like, maybe if I just
Yeah.
microdose and see what happens. So that's one of the fun things I plan on trying.
Mm. And so for the show itself, where can people get tickets if they're interested?
Yeah, I mean, you could definitely get tickets off of the Edinburgh Fringe website if you look up my life as a so it's quote my so it's my life as an quote inspirational porn end quote star.
Hmm.
Don't search up porn
Uh,
star like one word because my mom had trouble finding it and she's like, Gabby, you're not on the website. I'm like, I'm literally on the website, mother. Like let me figure this out. And then yeah, and so but it ended up being fine. So I learned if you Google it as it's got to be two separate words and it's not porn star like
hmm.
together. And then of course Just a Tonic has their ticket link as
Hmm.
well. So if you go to Just a Tonic, oh, it'll be at Just a Tonic at the Mash House at the
Hmm.
Snifter Room, July 31st through August 11th at 8:35 or 20:35 military
Yeah.
time. That was the other funny part about getting the acceptance is I didn't realize that I was supposed that those were all the days I was supposed to perform, not my options.
Oh.
So I went into this totally blind. Like I really should have done way more research, but I saw Baby Reindeer and then I remembered the whole scene where they explained like how grueling it is, and I'm like, oh, that makes so much sense now.
I
So
love
either way, I'm very I we perform those are 12 days. That's me.
fabulous. I love how your research into Edinburgh was baby reindeer. That is
I didn't, but even when I was watching it at the time, I didn't.
it's
So that here's
interesting
the
to know.
crazy thing. It's like baby. When I watched like Fleabag and Baby
Hmm.
Reindeer, I was not watching those shows with the intent of going to Edinburgh Fringe. Like if I literally like went back in time, like even a year ago today, and told myself like, "Oh yeah, you're going to Edinburgh Fringe," I'd be like, "What the hell are you talking about? With what? How? Why?" Like it was
Yeah.
not. This is a completely different like timeline for me, and I'm just so grateful and excited. But no, it was very much an afterthought of like, oh, that's what they're
Yeah.
talking about. Oh,
Talking about links, I will say don't do what I did and type in inspirational porn star. Um,
you get weird things.
Very
You get weird.
different to a lovely play at the Edinburgh Fringe. So my final question is, what advice do you have
Mhm.
for sort of young people looking to get into the industry?
Oh, that's a great question. And I've said this a couple times to not just my friend, but even someone younger too. And something that I kind of wish I knew earlier in my life, but 31 is a good place to start now, is to not depend so much on gatekeepers,
Hmm.
and also to don't wait for like permission to do things. Because I had a whole coffee conversation about this where my friend Mitch was like, "Oh, I'm trying to see like what people need, like how to find a job, like what do people, because we get
Yeah,
very caught up in like, oh, what do they need? What do they want? What role
yeah.
should I be looking at to get? What all those things." And honestly, I told him, I was like, nobody asked me to write this show.
Mm.
Nobody's asking me to show up in lingerie and talk about my life. No one asks for this. Like nobody was, so you kind of just do it.
They're
Like you
having
should
it.
just
Whether they
do.
want it or not, they're gonna have it.
Yeah, it's happening. And apparently the people,
Yeah.
it might not be what you want, but it's what you need. Um, but and especially like, because I know like there's all these antiquated and traditional ways of breaking
Mhm.
into the industry, but I'll be honest, like I hate auditioning. I don't sure I know like self-tapes are part of it. I know like I gotta show up and be like, but I rather just do my own thing.
Yeah.
And this gives me that power and autonomy, and it actually grounds you and makes you,
Mm.
because this industry is already so chaotic and life is hard enough. So if you have like something that you can take and make it yours and it's your baby, it does that's what like grounds me. So I'd say you don't need permission from anyone,
Hmm.
not your parents, not your significant other, especially men, do not, do not,
Don't trust them.
just don't. But yeah, you just really gotta just do your own
Mm.
thing, which sounds so cliche, but you don't want to waste time like hoping people you want to be chosen. Like you need to choose yourself.
Totally.
And it's when I know, so cliche, because I hated when people said that to me, but it's true. You just have to, like, if this is something you want to do and you can't imagine your life without it, like, you have to,
Mm.
you can't wait for people to choose you. You have to choose yourself. And whether that's producing a whole show for Edinburgh Fringe or a film project, like, whatever your medium, whatever your art is, like, just make it. Because even if you feel like no one's asking for it, there's someone that needs it.
Totally. Totally. So I said it at the beginning, but I'll end the same way. Thank you so much for taking the time out to sit down and chat with me.
Well, thank you for having me.
I will put all the links in the comments so people can just scroll down and click away. But
Perfect.
thank you so much, and I shall speak to you soon.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.